world, my name is Ashley. I lost the wheel of my chair. It's too late now. I'm Ashley Collins. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The Breakup Diaries. Super awesome guest today. Y'all, we're going to get into some thought-provoking stuff right here. Take your notes on your notepad, cell phone, whatever. Also, disclaimer, I cannot see comments for some reason with StreamYard. So if you comment, I won't be able to see them. I'm not ignoring you. Okay? So please introduce us to yourself, sir.
Well, I am Cole Johnson. I do a few different podcasts. One of them is Revelations. One of them is Get Over Divorce. Of course, what people know me on is the YouTube version of my podcast called ColeSportz, which has been, I can't believe it's been 5 years in existence. Wow. Crazy. But also on my day job, I work for USA Today as a digital producer. So I guess I lead an interesting life, per se. Mm-hmm.
So you've always done journalism or in entertainment.
Yeah, I slowly got into the field, I would say probably 10-ish years ago, and it's just grown and blown up to where it is now, and it's still growing even as of today. Yeah.
And then I also have to say, forgive me, thank you for your service.
Oh, yes, U.S. Army. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
How long did you serve for?
I served for roughly 2 years. It was an interesting experience. Learned a lot about myself. Learned a lot about, of course, life in general, and how people. I learned a lot how people speak about how they regard soldiers and how they actually treat them when the citizenry actually is living near them. Sometimes it could be two totally opposite perspectives and viewpoints, but all in all, I had an interesting experience in the 2 years that I served.
Would you mind elaborating on that?
Oh, no problem. Now, when we talk politics, you hear the overwhelming, we have to support the troops and everything is all about the troops, and you can't say anything disparaging about the groups. That's politically. Now, I was stationed at Fort Bragg, and I had to deal with a lot of skepticism, a lot of pushback and blowback, a lot of backlash, and a lot of negative opinions about being a soldier with the citizenry in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And it was quite an alarming wake-up call for me. And I thought it was just me. And then I realized, oh, no, it's not me. It's whoever wears the uniform. And mind you, in that area, not only is there an Army base, there's also an Air Force base there, too. So it's almost as if the people there, at least I should say, this was a few years, and I mean a few years ago. It may have changed since then. But when I was in the military, it almost was to the point where you didn't even want to deal with them. It was just that bad. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it's okay. I mean, it's okay. I loved the experience, and there were, even dealing with that, there were some good eggs too. So it wasn't all horrible and bad with them.
Yeah, I'm sure. Good. Okay, so let's talk about ColeSportz. How did that come into fruition?
Always so telling this story. So I can't believe it's been this long. Roughly 9-ish years ago, I was just sitting on one side of the room, and my wife was sitting on the other side of the room. She was actually mixing a show of her own, and she stopped. She perked up. She looked toward me, and she says, "Babe, we have to talk." Now, gentlemen, whenever you hear women say we have to talk, normally the defenses go way up.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we have to talk. Okay, fine. All right. What is it that we have to talk about? So I diligently went over to the other side of the room and sat next to her. And I said, all right, babe, what do you have to say? What do we need to talk about? She says, I've been thinking. You know a lot about sports. You talk about it a lot. I mean, you talk about it ad nauseum. You almost bore me to death when you talk about it. You know a lot about this. So why don't we put that to good use? You actually have a good voice too. why don't we actually have you do a segment on my show? So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a 2-minute segment on sports and go. Go. I mean, I haven't done this. What do you want me to talk about? What you talk about football because the playoffs then were happening at the time because it was January. What do you want me to talk about? I trust your judgment. Just give me a 2-minute segment and chop chop. I'm like, oh, good lord. In the 30 minutes that she allowed, and then she's exactly what it was. I talked about, but I think it was NFL centric. But the one part I do remember was the end when I did it because I ended it by saying, "I'm Cole Johnson, and this is ColeSportz." As soon as it left my mouth, my wife was like, "Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! That hook! That hook! Where did you come up with that hook? I don't believe you." Every time you do this show, you will do that hook. I'm doing a show? I don't care when you have this mic slid into your mouth, you're doing that hook every single God, you do that every single time you have a mic in front of your mouth. I'm like, okay, all right. All right. Oh, Sports, I'll do that. Where'd you do that? How'd you know how to do that? I was like, oh, no, just listen to radio for God knows how long. I mean, it just came to me. And that's the name of your show, too, ColeSportz. I'm like, oh, Lord. People are going to think I'm vain. Okay, fine. So I'll name it ColeSportz and I'll do the hook at every time I begin and end the show that I supposedly am doing. Fine. Now, I would love to say that I shot and hit the ground running after that, but I actually sat on it for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't even do anything related to it until 4 Januaries later. And I sit down with not necessarily this smartphone, but I did it with a smartphone and not necessarily these earbuds, but earbuds and a smartphone and cut my first episode. And I thought, okay, this is great. Then I realized it was 2 hours long with no bumper music, with no music bed, with no transitions. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I said, all right, I have to do 2 things. One, not have an episode unless I could justify it be that long. And 2, at least cut this down to an hour. So that's when the journey began. I cut the next show to an hour, and then I got it to where I could cut it down to 30 minutes in about 2 months' time. And then I started to do 2 30-minute shows, and then I combined it back to an hour, I think about 2019. And then I started to do the video element last year. So it's been a evolution and a growth that I am proud of, actually.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Okay, so can we talk about sports?
Oh, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
so tell me your top 5 favorite dunkers. No, not your favorite. Who do you think are the top 5 best dunkers of all time?
5 best dunkers of all time. All right, I already
Mhm.
have my number 1 and 2 in mind. So, all right, let me see. Number 5. Probably surprise you. I'll say number 5 is Zach Levine. He's probably my number 5. Um, Number 4 would be, I think I would put Dominique Wilkins in that one. Love the Human Highlight film. Guy is absolutely phenomenal. Number 3, I would put Michael Jordan because I
Oh,
think I've never seen a more graceful dunker. Even with him, I don't think I've seen another graceful dunker than him. And thanks to him, I think we think about the dunk in a romanticized fashion. So he has a lot to do with it. Number 2 is Dr. J because I am a fan of the players that we see now had to get some inspiration from the ones that preceded them. So
Mhm.
we saw Michael Jordan do the stuff he did. Dr. J was doing that stuff in the 70s.
Mhm.
So I mean, he to me, he would endlessly have my jaw drop. In fact, he was the originator of the baseline to goal dunk that Jordan popularized in the
Oh.
80s. Number one, Vince Carter. All I have to say is when I saw this man leap over a 7-footer to dunk, game, set, match. And
Mhm.
I can't think of another dunker that was better than him. And I still get flack over saying, yeah, Vince Carter, greatest dunker to ever play in the NBA. I still get flack over that, but I don't care. It's just
No,
the
I
truth.
remember. I remember watching the dunking contest and like watching him. It was always just so like, how did he do that?
Hmm.
You know, I remember
Yeah.
that very well.
And that's another thing too. I love the fact that he knew how to not only have these insane dunks, but he knew how to put on the show too, because that's another element that people forget. I mean, we can have these athletic marvels just, attack the rim and duck with ferocity, but you draw the casual fan in by liking the personality.
Mhm.
So seeing so see to me seeing Vince do a reverse 360, and then as soon as he touches down on the deck, just bounces up like he's on a pogo stick, and just it's so excitable. I'm like, yeah, I'm drawn to that guy.
I agree. I agree. Um, is Anthony Edwards the next rising star?
Well, the way he rose up in that 7-footer and dunked, you would be hard pressed to not call him that. Uh, Here's the thing. We heard a lot about Zion Williamson last year, and of course, we didn't get a chance to see all of that because of COVID-19 and his injuries. Uh, I think the thing that we have to do is we can't throw so much expectation so soon on a player.
Mm,
I think he has the tools to be that guy. The question is, will the Timberwolves actually surround him with the talent to do it? And will he seek to grow in the offseason? Because I think that's another key. What is he going to bring to the table the next year when we see his game now, when we see his game again in October? What's something different are we going to see? And then are we going to see his game evolve from one October to the next October to the next October? Uh, the fact that he has the skills to play and he has the athleticism to play is why he's in the league. To develop the staying power is what's going to keep him there. And
mhm.
that's the only question I have about Anthony Edwards. But what I've seen thus far, he, I love what I see. I love what I'm seeing from him.
Word, 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 word. Russell Wilson requested for a trade? Question mark. He wants to go to the Cowboys? Question mark. Why?
I have to actually thank you for actually putting question marks with both of them, because I have not heard this guy say I want out of Seattle. I have not heard him say that. But I get the frustration he has. I mean, he's been there almost 10 years, and
Oh wow.
if you're going to if you're going to be the face of a franchise and you're going to be there that long, well, shouldn't you have a say in how the organization runs? Because the decisions that they make will directly affect him. I mean, especially if we're talking about offensive line, because if you have a porous offensive line, which the Seahawks has had a decreasing in terms of value offensive line from year to year, yeah, that would be a huge question mark. Only once is just to be heard. It's just to have the front office say, okay, Russ, is there a certain player or is there a certain direction you want to see us go in? They don't necessarily have to say, okay, we want you to make all the decisions for us and just devalue the front office altogether. He just wants to be a part of the decision making, which is, to me, totally fine. As far as going to the Cowboys, uh, see, this is something that Gerald Jones, I do not call him Jerry, I always call him by his full name, the owner of the Cowboys. This is where Gerald Jones is hoping for I guess you could say, the free agent equivalent of the Hail Mary, because he has a quarterback already there in Dakota, or Dak Prescott. And he does not want to pay Prescott the money that he has to pay him already in franchise tagging him. Okay, and for those who don't know, a franchise tag basically is if you don't have a contract with the team and the team doesn't want to sign you to a certain deal, if you want to keep them around, they have the right to say, okay, you're going to play with us for the next year, and you're going to draw, in terms of salary, the average of the top 5 in your position. So yes, it's not really fair to the player. However, they say that it is beneficial because they get paid, quote, top dollar for the position since you're being franchise tagged. So Dak wanted to get paid. He said he wanted to get paid Patrick Mahomes money, which he's earning right now, a $40+ million a year contract. It's going to end if he hits all of his incentives, it's going to end up being in full length $500 million that he gets, and he has $140 million guaranteed. So the reports are saying that Dak wants to have something, not quite the exact same, but something similar to that type of contract. And there's a lot of fandom that says, well, he doesn't deserve that type of money. Well, to be quite blunt, when it comes to the sports world and money, deserves has nothing to do with it. It's whatever the owners are willing to pay you. And they don't want to pay Prescott the money they're paying him now. They had to pay him $32 million last year. If they franchise tag him this year, they will pay him $37 million. Now, now he basically is asking for, to me, I'm thinking he's asking for something like maybe 3 or 4 years, $40 million a year. That's what I'm thinking Prescott's asking for. The sticking point is the Cowboys want to sign Prescott to a longer contract and maybe not pay him as much per year. And so you have the roadblock there, and it's been a roadblock for 2 years. And now here is this home run possibility, or I'll stick to football. Here is this 3rd and long with 5 seconds to go. And if I nail this Hail Mary, I actually win the game. But if I don't, I lose opportunity with having Russell Wilson come to the Cowboys. I laughed when I first heard it. I'm laughing at it now because I think it's absolutely ridiculous, because this is supposed to save Gerald Jones and having this not be the blunder of actually pricing himself out of a quarterback he already has in lieu of seeing if the grass is greener on the other side. And when you have that issue, you're going to have the problems that you're going to run into. And I really see the Cowboys eventually not having either one of them, because I don't see Wilson leaving Seattle. I really don't.
Word. Why is everyone so angry at JJ Watt right now?
Well, they're angry with it for 2 reasons. One, sports fan likes to count pockets. You know, they like to dig in a player's wallet. They like to just go into the pocket and say, wait a minute, you don't deserve that type of money. Watt is 32 years old. He's been in the league 10 years. This will be his 11th year this year. He has been oft injured in the last 10, 16, 17. The last 5 years he's been oft injured, on and off. And you have fans who are saying, wait, oft injured. He's not the guy he was not the guy who was winning the defensive player of the year after year. Like from 2012 to 2015, he's not that player anymore. No, he doesn't deserve to have that money. And the money he has is he signed a 2-year contract for $32 million, $23 million guaranteed. And, you know, here he is. He's on the wrong side of 30. He doesn't have the burst he used to have when he was in his mid-20s. What player would have that same burst? You get knocked around for 10 years. You're not going to have the same athleticism in your mid-30s as you had in your mid-20s. You just aren't. So you have that dynamic in play, and then you have the choice of team. The Cardinals? Wait a minute. I thought you wanted to play for the Steelers because your brothers TJ Watt and Derek Watt are there, and TJ Watt being a defensive player of the year candidate himself, stud linebacker. Uh, you talked about wanting to play with them. You don't go there. You thought about going home, and home for him is Wisconsin, and the only Wisconsin team there is Green Bay, the Packers. So you don't go there. You don't go with the Chiefs. You don't go with the Bills. You don't go with a team like the Browns, who possibly could need you. And all those teams I named are Super Bowl contenders. You go to the team in the desert where they're not bad, but Super Bowl contenders? Nah. It would make better sense if you went to Seattle, because they are a little closer toward the Super Bowl realm in contention than the Cardinals are. But the only reason why the Cardinals aren't is because most of the roster is young. I mean, they have a young quarterback in Kyler Murray. So I get that. And their defense is, well, it's hurting because their stud defender is Chandler Jones, and he's recovering from an injury that he had all of last year. But the year before, he had 20 sacks. So the defense was missing him. The whole team actually was missing him. And they didn't look quite as stellar. But I wouldn't think a team that has a second year guy quarterback would look stellar. But they improved to 8-8. And I think what people missed is you had two factors of having him be there. One, a former teammate of 7 years, and Deandre Hopkins is there. And I know he was in the ear of the Cardinals brass saying, yeah, I think we can get over the hump with this guy. He may not be the guy he was in 2015, but I tell you, he'll be the first in office, the last to lead. The guy's work ethic is great. His leadership is wonderful. I know, I have played with him for 7 years. This guy's a stud. So you had that guy. Then you had the former Broncos head coach, now the defensive coordinator for the Cardinals, Vance Joseph, who was a defensive assistant for the Texans from 2011, 2013 there as well. And I'll add a third thing. The Cardinals play in what they call the 3-4 system, which basically that means 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers behind them. And Watt's position is defensive end. And if he had more athleticism, teams would probably be apt to try to switch him from there to outside linebacker. But normally you need girth at the defensive front position if you're only having 3 down linemen. And he's 6'5", 295. So you're not really going to put a guy that big on, as an as an outside linebacker. You want to put him on the line and deal with the offensive lineman at the line of scrimmage. And so now the Cardinals have the ability to switch Jones and Watt to either side of the field when they attack them. But the reasons why people are just saying, wait a minute, why JJ? Why the Cardinals? It's because they thought, okay, well, this guy said he wanted to go to a contender. And the Cardinals technically are not, but they can be. Mm-hmm. And that he's getting paid more money than people think they should. Sports fans, stop counting people's money.
It's all about the money. It's all about the Benjamins, though.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, did you see the talk between Shaq and Candace Parker?
I didn't see it. I heard a little bit of it.
Oh my gosh! So
I heard a little bit of it.
It was so scandalous in a kind of like disrespectful kind of way, though. What are your comments on like the new school people trying to school the old school people?
I'll admit that there's a lot of old school elements of basketball that I absolutely love, and I dislike that's not there in the sport today. But we can stand and learn something from the new school. I mean, life is about evolution, and it could be sports, it could be any other avenue of life. You have to evolve. I mean, there were times where the sport was just basically just dunks and layups and maybe a 5 to 10 foot shot. I mean, that was the sport. And we're talking, 1960, 1965. I mean, we didn't even have a 3-point line until 1979 in the game. So, you know, it's new. And for the first 20 years of the 3-point line's existence, it was basically considered okay, that's a specialist thing, So if you can have a shooting guard or a small forward that can actually hit a three, cool. But the game is inside out. And when you're talking about Shaquille O'Neal, happy birthday, big fella. I know, number 49. I hope everything was good on your birthday. Uh, you're dealing with a guy who was a center, and he was taught old school, the center wins chips, and the game should, if you have a big man, revolve and evolve around him. So
Yeah.
I get his argument from that standpoint. And in a lot of ways, I agree with him. In a lot of ways, I also agree with Candace as well.
Yeah.
Because you can't, if your skill set isn't there to have the big man be the guy that you can build around, well, you got to build somehow. And the prime examples would be that of Michael Jordan in the 90s. Well, heck, you can say even Magic Johnson in the 80s to a degree, but definitely Michael Jordan in the 90s, Kobe Bryant in the 2000s, and then you have LeBron James / the Warriors in the 2010s. You don't necessarily need to have a big man offensively to cook in the league, as they say now. So I get what Shaq is saying. They could stand to be probably easier scoring, better shooting, and possibly better overall team play. I'm with that, but I'm also with Candace in saying, wait a minute, you can't put antiquated values and ways upon players who are athletic today who can get up and down the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Candace being one of those players since she plays now. So I understand that. Has gone more to a I call it a 10 wing players only league. And when I mean wing players, I mean basically small forwards and shooting guards just running up and down the floor. Because of the sport was you had a guy, a little general, but little general meaning 6 feet to 6'4".
Yeah.
Be basically the quarterback of the team. And you might have a guy similar in height to him be the shooting guard. You might have a guy who's like 6'6" to 6'8" to be the small forward, a guy 6'8" to 6'11" or 7 feet to be the power forward, and a guy who is from 6'10" on up be the center. And each guy had his role. Well, now all of that is being blurred. I'm okay with the lines being blurred. I just hate the fact that we don't have the presence of an inside game anymore. That it's more along the lines of you got to penetrate, shoot from long, or oh well, and that's your offense. I get it, but if you can strategize and have a good, I guess you could say, good success with it, like the Warriors have had the last 6 years, for the exception of last year, then fine, do it. But not all 30 teams do it.
Yeah. I feel you. I feel what you're saying. So now talking about, you mentioned Kobe. Mm-hmm. Should we change the logo?
I have this love and hate feel for Uncle Drew. I don't call him Uncle Drew. I call him Uncle AWOL. I'm sorry, Kyrie Irving. His heart's in the right place.
Wait, why'd you call him Uncle AWOL?
I call him Uncle AWOL because what was it? It was when the season began, he just decided to up and leave and just tell nobody where he was going. And the team didn't even know for at least a week and a half where he was. Then all of a sudden, we have a Kyrie Irving sighting celebrating his sister's birthday. Then he ghosts for another week plus before the team decides, okay, well, When you come back, you're gonna be quarantined for 2 weeks. Basically, it's a suspension, but they didn't call it that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like another month before he got back on the court. I call him Uncle AWOL because I'm like, you can't be an adult like that and be that irresponsible. I mean, because if I were to do, and I'm not even in my 20s anymore, if I were to do that to my job, guaranteed day number 2, I'm gone.
Right?
I wouldn't
Yeah.
have a job, so this guy does it, and he still gets a chance to be an all-star. Yeah, that's why I call him Uncle AWOL. And look, credit to him for being philanthropic. I mean, he bought the George Floyd survivors a house. I love
Oh,
that about
wow.
him. He has a
Oh,
great
wow.
heart.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he has a great heart, but he just is an immature. He has an immature work ethic in terms of you can't stand up your teammates. That's why I call him Uncle AWOL. Well, he's saying that Kobe should be the logo of the NBA. And I think part of the reason was because most of the players are black in the league, and of course the logo now is that of a white guy. um
Yeah, because it's Jerry West, right? I didn't know
mhm,
that.
yeah.
My friend actually taught me that the other day,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Because it's Michael Jordan, isn't it?" And he's like, "No,
No.
it's not Michael Jordan." I was like, "It looks like Michael. He's bald." I didn't know it was Jerry West.
Good job. Yes, it was Jerry West. It's been that way since 1969. So the logo's been there more than 50 years, to the point where people have nicknamed Jerry West the logo.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And he's a wonderful guy. I mean, he was hard. He was hard luck. He was a hard luck player as a player, because he went to the finals 9 times, but only won the finals once. But he got his revenge on the whole league when he became an executive, and he was the executive of the Lakers, and he just won chip after chip after chip. And so he's been a champion many times over as an executive. And to me, Jerry West is the greatest executive the NBA has ever had in the history of the sport. But he's gone on record as saying, "I really don't want to be the logo anymore." In
Mhm.
my estimation, I love the fact that it is him, because he is one of the greatest players that's ever been in the league. And I think people still sweep under the rug or sidestep or sidetrack or dismiss the player contribution of Jerry West. I mean, we're talking about a guy who career-wise scored 27 points, averaged 6 rebounds and 6 assists a game. Do you know another player who has done that and people think that he is the bee's knees? Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
Exact same stats: 27 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. And I love the answer. So if we're gonna be so rah about Iverson, we should be the same way about Jerry West.
Mm.
And part of me is like, "Oh no, don't fool with the logo. It's fine," because to me, I think it's a proper tribute to Jerry West, because he has contributed to the league in a way that I would say almost every other person has not. So
Mhm.
I think it's a tribute to him that he is the logo. However, I will say, if it's going to change to anybody, it should be Jordan, because he's the most iconic player in basketball history.
Mm.
Sorry. It
I
should
agree with
not be
you.
Kobe. And I love Kobe.
Of course. Okay. So to end the sports section of our talk,
Okay.
I'm gonna say this wrong. Forgive me.
Okay.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
It's a very hard name to pronounce. Yeah, I
Was
think
that
it's
good-ish?
Ibrahimovic, I think is how you pronounce it. Yeah.
Oh, well. He said that athletes should be athletes. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree to a degree. Uh,
Mm.
this is why I say to a degree. His platform, you're an athlete. You shouldn't speak on other issues besides on the court, on the ice, on the gridiron, or on the diamond, or in the ring, or whatever have you. Is your athletic trade? I understand that. I do. But if you're going to speak on something, be educated about it. Because I don't mind a player who is outspoken. I don't at all. In fact, I think sports is more enriched when you have a player who's outspoken. It's just, if you know the subject matter, I'd be more interested in what you have to say totally as a platform. I'll give you an example. Colin Kaepernick. I love the fact that he had a principle and he stood on it. I've had issues with all of it from the standpoint of, it took a Navy SEAL for you to understand that you can't be disrespectful to the flag in the anthem because people are going to see it that way. Don't sit, kneel. And once he did that, I was like, okay, cool. That's fine. I have no horse in the race after that. As long as he's doing that, I'm good. And of course, others still have an issue, even to this day, 4.5 years later, about him kneeling. I mean, I can go into it and say that, we have guys look at him as unpatriotic, but we had people who did what they did January 6th at the Capitol. I digress. And they're all patriotic. But he was up and down in terms of direction of the platform. So he didn't speak much. And when he did, it was sometimes you cringed because it was like, that's a misstep. And it was a misstep.
Mm-hmm.
So when I want athletes to speak, I want them to be educated in what they speak about, because if they do, they can further the human condition with it. Prime example is Muhammad Ali. When he was actually forced to do it, and he wasn't the most book smart guy in the world, but he was charismatic, and he actually did do the homework, and he ended up being the voice of a generation that protested against the Vietnam War. So it can be done, and you don't have to be Dr. Michael Eric Dyson or Dr. Cornel West or Tavis Smiley. I'm sorry. My bad, Ashley. You don't have to be those figures to know what you're talking about when it comes to human condition, just as long as you know what you're talking about. But LeBron's response to him was so classic, because LeBron's that guy who does do his homework. he said to Zotlan, he said, "Oh, you mean the guy who said that I shouldn't speak, the guy who spoke about his ills in Sweden as a soccer player, and he had discrimination issues. He spoke out against that. But I'll sip this tea over here." You know what I mean? So I mean, I can't fault LeBron for doing that. I can't fault him or anyone else for doing it if they do the homework to study and well, to introduce scripture in it. Study to show yourself approved. If you could do that, cool. And if you speak to my condition to make it better, have at it. Because I want my condition to be better. I want yours to be better. I want everybody's condition in life to be better. And it doesn't matter if it comes from an athlete, a politician, a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, or a journalist. It doesn't matter. As long as you can speak to the human condition and make it better, do so. But just make sure that you're educated in what you're talking about.
That's for 1,000% going into the clip. That was real. That's true. Okay. Now shifting to current events.
Okay.
So you have a friend Bob, right?
Okay.
Let's say you love Bob. You guys go way back. You guys were shooting hoops in the mean streets of Compton. I don't know. And last week, Bob had a scandal. He did something bad.
Okay.
To where he potentially is going to get canceled. What do you do?
Oh, cancel. Oh my gosh. The bane of everybody's existence is cancel culture. That's my friend. I got to stand by him. And if it means that they throw rocks at me too, look, they hated on Jesus as well. I mean, heck, he even stated it. It's like, look, They hated on me. So if they're gonna hate on Jesus, they're gonna hate on anybody else who goes against the grain. So I would stand by my friend. That would be an issue there. I mean, if we to borrow from Good Times, if we're tighter than pantyhose is 2 sizes small, and we roll that deep, and we're cut from that same cloth, and we're boys. Yeah, I'm standing with it 100%. I don't care if the cancel culture comes and decides to shed their poisonous light on him and me. I wouldn't care. I'll still be boys with him. We'll still be shooting hoops in Compton.
Good answer. Good answer. From when was it? Was it Friday or Thursday? So first of all, do you want to talk about Brothers of Legacy?
Sure. We can talk about Brothers of Legacy.
Yeah. So tell us what it is for those of us who don't.
Well, it's a platform, and I love this platform. It's a platform of 4 brothers who I came across them through one of the 4 of them, Terry Little, or the Guru, as he likes to call himself.
Terry has so many 6 degrees of separation. He's like, like I don't think he realizes how popular he is.
Yeah. and I also do not think he realizes how influential he is too, and how powerful he is.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So I came across this group through him, and I to support him, because I met him a little before this time last year doing another venture. Actually, it was a sports venture, and it didn't pan out. And so, we all went our separate ways. And then about a few months later, I stumbled upon this Brothers of Legacy thing. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I see a familiar face. Let's see what's up with that. So Brothers of Legacy is a platform of 4 brothers. And I don't mean 4 brothers as in blood brothers. I mean 4 brothers as in 4 guys. Terry Little, Dwayne Goodson, Pastor Brian McCrory Sr., and AD, Anthony Walker. And I love it when he throws on the blazer, because blazer AD gets serious. So he's he's the moderator of the show. And it started as a show, and then it morphed into a community thing. And unfortunately, 2020, I wouldn't say stunted it. I think it caused the community aspect to shift in a different direction. And it's gotten stronger since then. I think it's been in existence, I think, 2+ years now. And I have learned so much from them, and I got hooked in seeing all of these guys speak. And so I started to comment, and that's when I actually met the Anta Dragons and and other wonderful people. And they loved what I contributed to the show so much. AD said, "You know what? I want you on the show." I'm like, "Okay, you sure you want this on the show?" He's like, "Yeah." So I've been a frequent contributor ever since, and I really have enjoyed the time there. It's been a wonderful experience. Wonderful.
And you're also a regular on the Knucklehead Chronicles as well, right? Or are you periodic as well?
I'm not a regular. I'm more of a periodic on that one. A little more periodic, a little less periodic, I should say, than Brothers of Legacy. But I know those brothers as well. Of course, I know 2 of those brothers very well, because it's 2 of the same, Dwayne and the Guru, who he hosts that one. There's another brother in Ephraim Terrell. I love E.
Oh, nice.
I love E. I think I love to jab him with LeBron stuff more than anything. But but the brother's awesome. I love him. And Kevin Peoples. I'm getting to know him, and what I know about him, I love. I mean, he's like that little brother guy that I like to hear what he has to say, because I might learn something new. And I think I have to put on my mentor cap. He strikes me as that sort of figure. And I love both platforms. I know the Brothers Legacy a little bit better and a little more, because I've grown a kinship with them a little more than the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. But I love them both, and I love all the guys who are affiliated with it, because they are wonderful, wonderful gentlemen.
They are. They're so fantastic, so warm, so welcoming.
Hmm.
And I think it was either Thursday or Friday in Texas.
Hmm.
They don't call in history books. They don't call them slaves. They call them migrant workers. Could you elaborate on that for us?
Okay, so back in 2018, they started to talk about this, and they tabled it until I think it was 2020, right around the time we had to shelter in place because of COVID-19. The Texas legislature passed, I still can't believe they did this, passed a resolution that that Texas school books had to change mentioning slaves to, I think it was either migrant workers or indentured workers or indentured servants, something of that nature. It was worded of that nature, and I was like, here we go with the whitewash of history. And when I say whitewash, I don't necessarily mean skin color here. I just mean people wanting to make a time period that is so fraught with absolute horror,
Mm-hmm.
to make it be like Gone with the Wind, to romanticize evil. And it's just, to me, I'm like, you what would you call a person? I don't care if you're black or white or any skin color in between. What would you call a person who is at their not in their will, doing work for free, and if they don't do that work, they get tortured? They would be lucky if they get tortured. They actually might get killed.
Yeah.
You call that a migrant worker? No, that's a slave.
Yeah.
That's a slave. And it bothers me. I went through that school system. I mean, I grew up in Houston, so all throughout, we got taught that. But even in U.S. history, when I went through that time period, they didn't even talk slaves. They didn't even mention the word, let alone teach it. Now they mentioned a couple of them. They mentioned, well, Nat Turner led a revolt, and they mentioned Harriet Tubman freed people,
Mm-hmm.
but they rarely ever mentioned the word slaves, even with them.
Mm.
And this is when I was going through school. Now I can imagine how even less of an impact before the banishment of the word slave in Texas school books were to exist, were to take place and happen. But it doesn't surprise me, because you have a governor who is extremely entrenched in all things GOP, and you have this issue, and it's just ridiculous that you keep seeing these gaffes from this guy, one after another, after another, after another.
Do you think that he's doing this all because he's trying to get into a higher position in office?
I think so. I think he's trying to get himself in position to be a national political figure. I do believe
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I do, but I also do believe that his Governor Abbott of Texas. I mean, I do believe Governor Abbott, though. I think his national candidacy for president would stop in his tracks because of freezing his own his own citizenry last month. But yeah, I could see him basically trying to do something similar to what I think I've seen Ted Cruz, who's a senator from the same state, national senator from the same state, is doing too, and it's just trying to position himself for that position of presidency and present himself to be a presidential candidate in 2024 by trying to do certain things and trying to appeal to a certain base and try to
Mm-hmm.
appeal to a certain electorate. And it's maddening when you can actually see it happen, because it's like, okay, where does the people come into play here? I get you have to shake hands with your party. I get that you have to deal with the people who love you and who are your cheerleaders. I get that. The Democrats have the same problem, but you don't have to do this at the expense of the people you're supposed to govern. I don't
Yeah.
understand that. I don't understand that.
They care about us when it's a nice camera moment.
Yeah, yeah. When it's a photo op, they're all for it. But
Mm-hmm.
when it's issues like what happened with last month, the electric grid, that's the last thing that they want to have. Photo op, be darned. Forget that. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I agree. I agree. Oh, okay. So if I said to you, there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs,
Hmm.
what does that mean to you?
You just spoke politics in one sentence right there. That is what politics is. Uh, at least American politics, at its core, is supposed to be the solution is the trade-off. I get what I want, and in turn, I will sacrifice some of what I don't want because this is what you want.
Mm,
And the problem with how it has worked in politics is that you have ego come into play. And when you have ego to enter into the fray, and I'm talking about long before we had to deal with Donald Trump, long before then,
mm-hmm.
you have you have these issues that just come up where when you are that type, and the late great Senator John McCain from Arizona is an absolute perfect example of this. When you do exhibit that, you're considered an outcast, you're considered a maverick, you're considered an outsider. When how he performed his job is the exact way you're supposed to perform it, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, look, I am a Republican, yes, but there's some good ideas on the other side of the aisle. I want to entertain what they have to say. And if you GOP don't like it, tough. I want to hear what they have to say because there may be something good that for all people might come about. But you have these red and blue pom poms just waving in the air. And I agree with that because most of life is it's not about solutions, it's a trade-off. But when you have ego come into play, forget the trade-off. I want the whole thing. And you have a
Yeah.
lot of people who believe that.
Yeah. 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 Um, was the flood necessary?
You talking about the biblical flood?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think it was necessary. And I say it was necessary because you see, it's unfortunate, how God has been, because he looks at looks at how we are as human
Yeah.
beings, and he sees that sometimes we want to be the big God ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, oh, come on, no, 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 no. And now he's like, look, I'm I'm going to enjoy my perch now because you have your savior, that's my son. So pray to him, and give your cares to him. But as for me, I'm chilling. But I think in the early days before Jesus was the life and the resurrection and the way for us, he was like, wait a minute, you guys don't get it. You
Yeah.
guys are so full of yourselves. Oh, okay, fine. Let me just erase this and start over.
Mm-hmm.
So it took a lot of spiritual maturity for me to understand. Oh, so that's what God was doing. Oh, because God wanted us to be a certain way. I mean, He wanted us to understand. Oh, wait a minute, We're not on this earth by ourselves. We're not operating on our own power only. We're operating under a bigger power, a bigger source, uh, a bigger power broker. So all of this isn't for me. All this is for somebody else. So my life is supposed to be a ministry. Wow.
Mm.
And so the flood was necessary because you had a whole lot of people who were like, well, who they still have the same mentality today in certain circles. I got mine. Forget about yours. I could like I got mine. I'm living in my house, and actually, I could care less about yours. See, God put that flood in place because He wanted that thinking to be washed away. So because we're supposed to have the heart of, yeah, I'm good, but how's my sister? How is she? Is she good? Is our friends good? You know, and if they're not, and if she's not, what can I do to make it better?
Yeah.
So the flow was necessary because that was God's messages of saying, stop being in your own self. You're getting in your own way. And I want you to understand that you're here for others as well as for me, but you're here for others through me. Stop being about yourself.
So now, follow-up question then.
Okay.
Do you think that coronavirus is reminiscent of that? Trying to get a clean slate.
I would love to say yes, but that would be cynical. I would say no. I would say this wasn't manufactured from God. I don't believe the coronavirus was. I believe this was this was something that man did, and man wanted to correct it by doing man things, and because of that, we ended up having population control, is what I call it. And you have to care about your citizenry. I mean, and you have to have compassion for one another. The issue of whether to put on or not put on a mask and making it political is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I'm supposed to shield myself from others and harming others. I don't think that's a crime. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a great thing. And I say this from a person who, in February of last year, contracted the coronavirus, but we didn't know that's what it was.
Oh.
And I felt bad too because I was on a business trip. This is what's so messed up. I was on a business trip. And it was supposed to be a wonderful time. And I enjoyed myself for the exception of I simply did not have the energy. I did not have taste buds. And I had this consistent headache no matter where I went for 4 days straight. And I tried to stifle my cough as best I could, but I was just coughing up a storm, coughing up a fit. And I don't mind saying this. I was in a restaurant with others, and here I am just, and I couldn't stop coughing. And I'm trying to not cough on them. I'm trying to not cough on the food. I'm trying not to spread germs. And this just hoping that it's influenza that I'm not trying to spread. And then come to find out I had something much more insidious that was going throughout me. I felt horrible that I was coughing and I couldn't cover my mouth fast enough. That, to me, that's what it's about. Compassion. You don't want to say that for any reason other than if you can find the good in it. And to me, the good that I believe we were supposed to find in it is you are supposed to care for your fellow man/woman. So if you can be inconvenienced by having a mask over your face so that you do not infect another person, so be it. I'm all for it. I'm still all for it. And I roam every day, every time I walk out of the house, mask on. And I have no qualm saying it anywhere because I don't want to affect anybody else. I'm fine now of COVID at all. But of course, I don't want to be infected again. But forget the me. I don't want to infect anybody else, whether I
Yeah.
know I have it or not. So, to me, the pandemic was supposed to be a lesson, in my opinion, to teach us to, again, like the flood, not be all in our own personal feelings and not make it about us.
Mm.
Also, I got to protect other people. Okay. Then, the protection of other people means a lot.
Yeah.
So let me do my part. But I don't
Yeah.
think this was God saying, okay, we're going to make people sick and 500,000 people in the United States alone are going to die from it. No. Mm-mm. No, I would not put that at God's feet at all.
So random, you do voiceover work?
I do. In fact, I have to get back to it a little more. Uh, okay. Why do you ask?
Because like your voice is like Keith David.
Hmm.
Is
Huh.
that his name? Is that Scar? That's Scar, right?
I think so.
Or like the voodoo man from Prince and the Frog. Like you just have that kind of like he used to play a Disney villain or like Cartoon Network villain. Like your voice is just so like whoa.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
I
I
feel bad
will.
I only said villains. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Um, I, I would love to say, well, yeah, I worked hard at this and I did all this stuff. I mean, I've done things to protect it and cultivate it and learn what makes my voice sound better and what makes my voice not sound so great. But yeah, I give that. I definitely give all that to God on this. This is God given. I'm glad I have it. I'm glad I have it. Thank you, Lord.
Yes.
But yes,
Oh,
I do voiceover work. In fact, I'm starting to do voiceover work for where and I do enjoy it. It's a wonderful outlet, actually.
nice. Cool, cool. Okay, so where can we like you, stalk you, follow you, all that fun stuff?
Well, I think I could bring you so many other ways, but I think you can find me in one place, and that is on my YouTube channel. You just type in youtube.com/C / ColeSportz with the Z. You can find me there. And if you want to send email to me, you can find me at Cole@ColeSportz with a Z at G. I'm sorry, Cole@ColeSportz with a Z.com. I'll be glad to answer whatever questions you may have.
And then final question.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you know these, you probably do, because you're
Okay.
a very intelligent man.
Thank you.
Um, so I learned recently that a deer freezes when it sees headlights because it's its defense mechanism.
Right.
When they hear danger, it freezes, they
Mhm.
freeze.
Yeah.
What can we learn from that to make our lives better?
That is a wonderful question, Ashley. That is a wonderful question. I think in the midst of a deer being in headlights, because it's always been a running joke, because when people say it's to say that you're fearful of something, that you are paralyzed in the moment. I don't look at it that way as much as I do when I see a deer literally looking at headlights. It normally is the moment where you see the deer being present and wide open and knowing a danger is there, and is alerting himself or herself that, okay, I need to do something now. Now the question is, can I have the wherewithal to make that decision in a rapid fashion? And I think what human beings can take from that, you mentioned COVID-19, coronavirus. I think we had deer in the headlights with that, and of course, along with it, the George Floyd murder. Yes, I do call it murder, and the subsequent happenings of the protests that happened during the summer of last year. We had a deer in headlights moment,
Yeah.
and the thing is, When you have those moments where the eyes are bucked and you're staring at danger in front of you, the question you have to ask yourself is, what do I need to do right now? Because I cannot sit on this decision. I have to make it at that moment. And we have seen in many instances this past year, some people wanted to embrace human beings and say, I may not know your plight. I may not know your struggle. I may not know you intrinsically, but you're a part of the human family, and I want to help you in any way, shape, form, or fashion I can. You have those sets of people. Then you have the other sets of people who are within themselves saying, well, I don't want what I have now to change, because what I have now is what I want to always have. And I will fiercely defend it to within an inch of my life, whether it is I am evangelical or not, whether I am Republican or Democrat, whether I am for a political party or not, whether I am for a political person or not. And what we've been seeing is the result of the deer in the headlights in human beings. We have seen it for the last year.
Yeah.
Some of it has been harrowing. Some of it has been angering. Some of it has been humorous. And some of it has been absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And I hope that we can take the deer in headlights moment that we've had these past year and be our better human selves to one another.
That was so, thank you for that, Cole. Thank you for that optimistic ending. That was, this was so perfect. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for your patience and for your time. I wish I could give you money, but.
Oh, if you can, please.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, man. I hope you have a fantastic weekend.
Oh, you too.
And I'll see you Sunday. See you tomorrow.
I think you will. Yeah. Thank you so much for this. I'm glad you opened your platform to me. This was I had a wonderful time. And if you want to have me on, I'll be glad to do it again. Thank you.
Yay. So much. Okay. I'll look for me when the championships roll around.
Okay.
All right. I will.